So Mikey Garcia and Adrian Broner are fighting this Saturday, and I'm already seeing some chatter on Twitter and just a few different boxing blogs and stuff like that for people calling for the winner of that fight, who most people think is going to be Mikey Garcia, to fight the likes of Vasyl Lomachenko at 135. Wouldn't it be great if Mikey Garcia, after he disposes of Adrian Broner and annihilates him, which a lot of people think he's going to plow right through Broner? I don't think so. I think the fight with Broner is actually going to be very, very competitive. But assuming Mikey Garcia just marches right through Adrian Broner at 140, he moves back down to 135, and then Vasyl Lomachenko, he wins his next fight at 130, he moves up to 135, and we get this pound for pound hypothetical level matchup. And I see a lot of fans and even some media talking about this stuff nowadays, and it starts to get on my nerves because for me, I guess I'm old school, and it's become an old school position now. Whatever happened? When did it become such a crime for a fighter to stay in their weight class and own a division for years and fight all the top contenders? Now, I'm not saying you're always going to get all of the major sanctioning organization titles. I mean, right now, Terrence Crawford and Julius Ndongo are about to accomplish that. The winner of that fight that comes up next month, they're going to have all the titles. They're going to have the linear title, all that, which Crawford already has. He's the man. But Ndongo's coming in now, all the titles, right? That doesn't happen very often. I don't necessarily think you have to do that to prove yourself as being the man in a division and clean it out. But for me, there's just something to be said for a fighter planting his feet at a certain weight class and staying there for a few years in owning a division. I just talked about Mikey Garcia and Vasyl Lomachenko. If they were to fight at 135 next year or something like that, neither one of those guys has cleaned out their division right now. Vasyl Lomachenko fights at 130 pounds, but he's really a featherweight. He had to move up from 126 because he was being ducked at 126. Nobody there wants to fight him. So he moved up a few pounds to win a title there, but he's never been the man of either division. So I understand why he moved up to 130, but he could get fights at 130. That's a loaded division. Politically, there are fights that can be made to unify and consolidate that division. It's the same thing with Mikey Garcia at 135. He's had literally one fight at lightweight. Now he's fighting at 140 against Broner. That's your money fight, your brand building fight. Okay, I get it. It's a one-off. But go back down to 135. Get the Jorge Linares fight. That's not really, really easy. It's going to take some work to make that fight, but there's a demand from the fans to make it. Let these two guys own 130, 135 for a year or so. Let them fight at the very end of next year, probably even early 2019 at 135. Then it's a big mega fight. Then it makes sense. For years, people have been asking Gennady Golovkin to move up 2 weight classes and fight Andre Ward at 175. Ward hasn't fought at super middleweight since 2013. And I know that there's that old talking point that Golovkin haters go to when they said they'd fight anyone from 54 to 68, well before they had all the titles consolidated at middleweight. But the last couple of years, Golovkin and his team have made it clear they want to have all the titles at middleweight. They want to do what Bernard Hopkins did, before him what Marvin Hagler did, and what other fighters going back decades before them have done at the middleweight division. And now Golovkin's going to fight Canelo Alvarez. The winner of their fight holds all the titles except for one at middleweight, which is an insignificant. I think it's the WBO title that Billy Joe Saunders has. He might hand it over to Willie Monroe in the next couple months. Maybe he keeps it, maybe not, but nobody really cares. The winner between Canelo Golovkin is going to have 3 of the 4 major titles and the Ring Magazine / Linear Middleweight Championship. Let's see the winner of that fight. And I've been saying it all along. I think that Canelo and Golovkin are going to end up fighting 2 or 3 times anyway. But whether I'm right or wrong, let's see the winner of that one fight or the 2 or 3 fights they have plant their flag, stay there even longer, and fight the likes of a Jamal Charlo or Demetrius Andrade once he moves up. Some of these young killers moving up. Same thing with Andre Ward at light heavyweight right now. He's the light heavyweight champion. He just has a big win against not Andre Ward, Sergey Kovalev. And he's got most of the titles, not all of them, But Adonis Stevenson, he's got that WBC title. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy to make a fight with Stevenson, but if Ward wants it, he's the money man in the division now, especially if he's willing to travel to Montreal. Go over there and grab another title. Fight Alexander Gvozdyk, maybe even a rematch with Sullivan Barrera, who's really improved since their first fight and is going to eventually earn a mandatory status for one of those titles anyway. Fight some of the young killers at 175. Dmitry Bivol isn't ready yet, but in another year, he'll be ready. I'd much rather see Andre Ward do that than move up to cruiserweight and fight one of the cruiserweights. Right now, the cruiserweights are having a tournament, the World Boxing Super Series, which is an outstanding field of cruiserweights. They're going to fight over the next year, determine one cruiserweight champion. If at that time Andre Ward wants to move up and fight that cruiserweight champion, I get it. Same thing with super middleweight. If Golovkin, Canelo, they want to consolidate and do their thing for another year, maybe fight some of these young killers coming up. And then after the super middleweight mess is cleared up, right now you've got the World Boxing Super Series, and you got, not every fighter went into it. You've got a Gilberto Ramirez. You still got James DeGale hanging around. If all those guys can consolidate things and make one clear number one fighter there, and that Golovkin, Canelo, whoever it is, wants to eventually move up and fight them, I get it. It makes sense. Terrence Crawford. Here's an example of a guy that I think has done it right. He wasn't the man at lightweight. He won a title there and defended it a couple times, but he moved up to 140 pounds. I'm just looking right here on my laptop. He's fought at 140 now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. One of those fights being against Victor Postal, which was a true number one, number two fight in the division. That got him the linear championship. This fight against Ndongo will be his 7th fight there. He beats Ndongo here. He wins all the titles. That's 7 fights at the weight class. He's fought the number 2 guy in the division twice, Victor Postal, and now Julius Ndongo. There's nobody else at 140 pounds. So if Crawford wins this fight against Ndongo and wants to move up to welterweight, where there's several good matchups, and take on the killers there, the names there, and build himself up there, I totally get it. Makes total sense. That's how you do it, in my opinion. You know, I'm just looking at the other guys in the top 10, pound for pound. You know, look, Chocolatito, Roman Gonzalez, one of the holes in his resume, in my opinion. Yeah, he's got titles in 4 weight classes, but he didn't unify once. He's been seen as the man in the division, but he didn't stay and clean it out. He hasn't done that yet. That's one of my chief complaints with Floyd Mayweather. He never planted his flag in the division and owned it and fought everybody, fought not just the other titleists, not just the big names, but the young lions, the young guns coming up. There's always been guys he's avoided. And you could say the same thing to a degree for Manny Pacquiao, for Oscar De La Hoya, for plenty of other big star fighters. For me, in my opinion, man, it's just a lost art where a guy stays in one weight class and owns it. Vladimir Klitschko, what he did in the heavyweight division, now to be fair, he couldn't move up in weight anymore. There were no other divisions, but to me, that's historic stuff. That's owning a division for a decade, right? And now Golovkin is trying to do that at middleweight. Bernard Hopkins did that at middleweight, and then he moved up to light heavyweight. We've seen guys do this. Terrence Crawford is trying to do it at junior welterweight right now. I think it's important that we see more of that. And what a lot of boxing fans don't realize, particularly fans who just started watching the sport, let's say in the last 10 years or so, with these weight jumpers. And it didn't start with Roy Jones Jr., but that's where it really became elevated. Roy Jones, and to make it clear, he owned 175 pounds. He was the man there for a while. But there was that quick bounce to heavyweight to fight John Ruiz, who nobody saw as the top heavyweight. It was kind of an easy cherry pick, grab a heavyweight title fight. And then there was the performance-enhancing drugs issues with Roy, and then he had troubles when he came back down in weight, and his career's never been the same. You know, I just think that HBO really had a hand in that because they really enabled some of it. Same thing with Floyd. A lot of the networks are responsible as well. It was HBO, it became Showtime, but this fight's at 47, then this fight's at 54, then we're back down to 47, then we're back up to 54. Canelo Alvarez has kind of taken that and gone completely crazy with it, and he's had these Canelo weight fights. You go from 154 to 155, then you go back down to 154, then you go up to 164, and the network, HBO, is enabling that. And a lot of you guys don't realize that moving up and down a weight like that, in my opinion, is a way to either avoid the top challenges or at least delay the top challenges. Why do you think Canelo has been bouncing up and down in weight for the last couple of years? Because he felt like it? Because he wanted to gain 1 extra pound and lose 1 extra pound? He wanted to test the waters at 164.5 pounds? It's because they were trying to develop him and delay the fight with Gennady Golovkin. Some of it's business, and I understand it. Some of it is, developing your fighter and letting the other guy wear himself down because there's an age thing there. This is a tried and true method that matchmakers, promoters, fighters, big star fighters have used. I mean, you look at Sugar Ray Leonard, he did it. I'm just saying, man, I appreciate when a guy cleans out a division. I think what Terrence Crawford is trying to do at 140 right now is great for American boxing. I'd love to see Andre Ward emulate that at 175. Andre Ward won the Super 6 tournament at 168 pounds, right? But he didn't own that division. He kind of went away after winning that tournament. There was a massive opportunity for him to travel to Montreal and fight Lucien Boutte and get that last title that he didn't have and get another fighter's O. There was briefly times where he could have maybe talked Sergio Martinez into moving up or fought a guy like Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. for a brand-building fight at 168. There were opportunities, but he found a way for them not to happen, and then he moved up to 175. Clearly, Andre Ward was the man. He was the champion at super middleweight, but he didn't own that division. It wasn't his division that long. There was one big win over Carl Froch. I think he defended his titles once against, there was Chad Dawson. That was kind of a brand-building anomaly fight where he drained a guy. It was what it was. It was a great HBO splash debut for him. Then there was the Edwin Rodriguez fight, and that was it. That was it. So now he's got an opportunity here at light heavyweight where there's all these fighters coming up. There's tons of fights that fans would love to see him in. He's got a chance now to kind of rectify what he screwed up before at light heavyweight. I'd like to see that. But there's so many of you out there who don't give a shit, who would just rather see him move up to cruiserweight and fight Tony Bellew. Not even fight the best cruiserweights out there, but fight Tony Bellew. And Tony Bellew, I don't think he's ever going to fight at cruiserweight again anyway. He's probably going to stay at heavyweight because he wants the money there. I wouldn't surprise me if he rematches David Haye. I just don't understand the weight jumping thing. So all this brings me back to Broner Garcia. And I just wanted to quickly touch on something. I'm not going to spend that much time on it. But apparently, Mikey Garcia tweeted or posted, I think it was Instagram, posted a photo or a meme of him as Mickey Mouse and Adrian Broner as Donkey Kong. Two video game, Mickey Mouse isn't even a video game thing. Or maybe he is, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't mess with the video game systems nowadays. I go back to like Game Boy and Super Nintendo and all that shit. But some people are making videos about this and writing blogs and getting tens of thousands of hits because they're making it a racial thing. There's no fucking story here. Absolutely no story. So it's not worth me going into and dissecting. Anybody with half a brain could see what the hell's going on here. It's the same thing with the Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor press tour that went on. Yeah, there was some racially charged things that were said. There were some misogynist things said, some homophobic things said. It was all pandering to a low IQ base of fans that are going to buy that fight. Sorry, but that's who they're pandering to. It's WWE. They're not pandering to... it's like musicians pandering to music fans. There's people that pander to top 40 pop music fans, and then there's radio stations that pander to jazz fans, right? Boxing's jazz. Mayweather McGregor's top 40 cornball pop bubblegum bullshit that's going to be forgotten about in 6 months. So which crowd are you pandering to? What do people eat up? Racism, misogyny, all this crap. So they're just pandering. So there's no story with that. So I mention it real quick at the very end of this video because a few of you have asked me about doing rant videos on that stuff. That's just how I feel about it. There's no real story. There's no real substance to any of it. It's all fluff. It's all bullshit. Mikey Garcia isn't a racist, and nothing he said about Donkey Kong or any of that was with intent to dismiss or criticize or put down people of African origin. That's absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, back to my original rant. If Mikey Garcia handles business against Adrian Broner, cool. You got your one-off. You got your brand-building fight. Go back to 135 and handle business there. Don't entertain any fights at 140. You're not ready yet. If somehow Adrian Broner pulls off this massive upset, that'd be huge for him. It'd be huge for boxing, American boxing in a way, because I think it'd set up a huge fight between him and the winner between Crawford and Dongo, particularly if it's Terrence Crawford. So we saw Terrence Crawford and Adrian Broner fight at 140 pounds. I'd welcome that one. So there's a couple scenarios there, but likely what's going to happen, Mikey Garcia wins a decision, move back down to 135, clean out things there. Vasyl Lomachenko, don't fall into the trap of other pound-for-pound hypothetical fighters who won fights based on hypotheticals on social media rather than doing it in the ring. Fight in the ring, fight guys at 130 pounds, plant your flag there. If you want to fight Guillermo Rigondeaux, you want to move down a couple pounds, that's a one-off just to shut those people up. Because at this point, I think Lomachenko dominates and probably stops Guillermo Rigondeaux, but at least wins a wide decision on the cards. Cool, do your one-off. But own 130. Set up the fight with Mikey Garcia for a year or two. Do the right thing. I just want to see more fighters doing it the old school way. What do you guys think? Am I crazy? Have I lost my mind? All these pound for pound hypothetical chats that go on Twitter. I'm sick of that shit. I'm sick of the hypotheticals. I want to see him do it in the ring. That's what I want to see.